Hollywood's fiery redhead stood up to the most famous director in cinema history, and what he did to her behind the scenes is absolutely disgusting. Maureen O'Hara was born Maureen Fitzsimmons on August 17, 1920, in Ranelagh, a quiet suburb of Dublin, Ireland. She showed an early love for the arts that was impossible to ignore. Growing up in a close Irish family that actively supported creativity, she found her path leading to the Abbey Theatre, Ireland's national theatre, where she received serious training in drama, voice, and how to speak properly on stage. With her striking red hair, pale skin, and bright green eyes, O'Hara had a beauty that wasn't fully shown in black and white movies, but would later become famous in Technicolor films. Her major breakthrough came in the late 1930s when she was discovered by famous actor Charles Laughton. Amazed by her talent and strong screen presence, Laughton signed her to his production company and cast her in Jamaica in 1939, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. The film brought her international recognition and opened the door to her first Hollywood role in The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1939, where she played the beautiful yet tragic Esmeralda. From that moment on, O'Hara's move from British cinema to Hollywood was surprisingly smooth, and she quickly became one of the most magnetic and captivating stars of her generation. But there was one man who would make her life a living hell, and his name was John Ford. Before we get to the shocking truth about what Ford did to Maureen O'Hara, you need to understand who she was and why she refused to be another silent victim in Hollywood's dark history. Maureen O'Hara was admired not only for her breathtaking beauty, but for the rare combination of strength, dignity, and sharp intelligence she brought to the screen. At a time when many actresses were limited to passive or purely decorative roles, O'Hara defied convention, choosing to play women with depth and backbone, characters who were spirited, strong, and unafraid to stand their ground. Her powerful performances in films such as How Green Was My Valley in 1941, which went on to win the Academy Award for Best Picture, The Black Swan in 1942, and Sinbad the Sailor in 1947 showed an impressive range and firmly established her as a true leading lady of Hollywood's golden age. Among her most treasured creative partnerships were those with legendary director John Ford and iconic actor John Wayne. Sharing both a deep personal friendship and undeniable chemistry with Wayne, O'Hara helped create a series of timeless classics including Rio Grande in 1950, The Quiet Man in 1952, and McLintock in 1963. Of these, The Quiet Man is often called their greatest achievement, with O'Hara's unforgettable performance as Mary Kate Danaher, a proud, fiery Irish woman, capturing audiences through her emotional intensity, fierce independence, and a romance that remains one of cinema's most beloved. Her performances, charged with passion, defiance, and striking emotional vulnerability, helped raise her films to legendary status. But behind the scenes during the filming of The Quiet Man, something terrible was happening that nobody talked about for decades. Beyond the screen, Maureen O'Hara was equally known for her unwavering integrity and her refusal to bend to the rigid expectations of the Hollywood studio system. At a time when conformity was often demanded, she boldly stood her ground, insisting on fair treatment and keeping the right to accept only those roles that matched her personal values. O'Hara was known to reject scripts she considered shallow or demeaning, earning a reputation for rare strength of character. She also resisted pressure to change her appearance or soften her identity, famously declaring that she was the only leading lady in Hollywood who could speak with an Irish accent and never had to lose it. This strength would be tested to its limit by John Ford's obsession. Maureen O'Hara entered her first marriage at just 19 years old in 1939, marrying English film producer George H. Brown. The two met during the filming of Jamaica in young, ambitious, and swept up in the intensity of the moment. O'Hara made the bold decision to marry in secret. It soon became clear, however, that the marriage was rushed and badly suited, and after mounting strains, it was formally annulled in 1941. That same year, she married again, this time to American film director William Houston Price. Though the marriage initially showed promise, it gradually fell apart under the weight of serious personal difficulties, particularly Price's struggle with chronic alcoholism. Despite the challenges, the couple welcomed a daughter, Bronwyn Bridget Price, born on June 30, 1944. Motherhood became one of the greatest joys in her life. Yet behind that happiness, the cracks in her marriage continued to widen. And after nearly a decade of trying, O'Hara made the difficult decision to end the marriage in 1951. In the years that followed, O'Hara entered a passionate and long-lasting relationship with Enrique Parra, a wealthy Mexican banker and powerful political figure. Spanning from 1953 to 1967, the relationship became one of the most significant chapters of her personal life. Though they never married, their bond lasted for nearly 15 years. And this is where John Ford's hatred and obsession reached dangerous levels. Ford intensely disliked O'Hara's relationship with Parra. Ford frequently interfered in her personal affairs and frowned upon the end of her marriage to Price, being a devout Catholic himself. His jealousy over Parra was so intense that it affected O'Hara's working relationship with Ford throughout the 1950s. In 1955, when they worked together on The Long Gray Line, O'Hara later said it was by far the most difficult film she made with Ford due to their declining relationship. It was not until 1968, at the age of 48, that Maureen O'Hara would finally find what many believe was her true and lasting love. She married Charles F. Blair Jr.B., a highly accomplished pilot whose extraordinary career spanned service as an U.S. Air Force Brigadier General and leadership as Chief Pilot for Pan American World Airways. Blair was also the founder of Antilles Airboats, a seaplane service operating throughout the Caribbean. Their marriage was built on deep friendship and mutual respect, and it was Blair who gently encouraged her to step away from the spotlight and embrace a more private life. O'Hara chose to retire from acting, devoting herself to supporting Blair's flying ventures. The couple settled in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where they enjoyed a peaceful life together. Tragedy struck in 1978 when, after just 10 years of marriage, Blair was killed in a devastating plane crash. The sudden loss left O'Hara heartbroken, made worse by serious health challenges. That same year, she was diagnosed with uterine cancer. True to her strength, O'Hara faced the illness with remarkable courage, undergoing surgery that ultimately proved successful and led to a full recovery. Now let's talk about what John Ford really did to Maureen O'Hara and why she truly hated him more than anyone. John Ford stands as one of the most influential filmmakers in Hollywood history, a towering figure whose body of work, including The Grapes of Wrath, Stagecoach, and The Searchers, helped define the Western genre and shape the golden age of American cinema. Yet behind the legend and artistic brilliance was a deeply conflicted man prone to volatility and emotional cruelty, who often took out his inner pain on those around him, especially his actors. Few felt the force of this chaos more intensely than Maureen O'Hara. The two worked together on several films, most notably The Quiet Man in 1952. But while the film radiated warmth and charm on screen, the reality behind the scenes was far more unsettling. In later years, O'Hara spoke openly about Ford's behavior, describing him as not merely demanding but emotionally manipulative, cruel, and at times outright abusive. She recalled moments when he would humiliate her publicly on set without reason, displaying controlling, dismissive, and jealous tendencies that got worse over time. O'Hara came to believe that Ford harbored an unspoken, unreturned obsession with her, one shaped by his strict Catholic upbringing and inability to process rejection, which erupted in anger and hostility. Rather than confronting his feelings, Ford used his authority as a weapon, using intimidation as a form of control. In one particularly disturbing account, O'Hara revealed that he once slapped her during filming, claiming it was part of his directing method. Though such conduct may have been excused within the studio system of the 1940s and 1950 seconds, O'Hara refused to accept it and made it clear she never would, but the abuse went far beyond just slapping. The most shocking incident happened at a party when Ford punched Maureen O'Hara in the face, so hard that her head snapped back. People who witnessed it gasped in shock. O'Hara later told The Telegraph in 2004 that she didn't punch Ford back because she wanted to prove she could take a punch. This wasn't just verbal abuse or emotional manipulation. This was physical violence, and it happened in front of colleagues and industry professionals who did nothing to stop it. Can you imagine? One of the most powerful directors in Hollywood punched one of the biggest actresses in the face at a party, and nobody did anything about it. Ford's obsession with O'Hara went beyond just on-set abuse. Letters discovered after O'Hara's death in 2015 revealed the true depth of Ford's twisted feelings. In one letter written on paper from Ashford Castle during the filming of The Quiet Man, Ford wrote emotional words expressing his longing for her. He wrote about how he needed her, not just physically but emotionally, and how her face was constantly in his dreams. In another Valentine's Day card he sent her in 1955, Ford drew Irish-themed illustrations and signed his name in green ink using the Irish version, Sean. According to those close to O'Hara, Ford would write her drunken love letters and at one point even broke into her house and went through her belongings. Yes, you heard that right. John Ford broke into Maureen O'Hara's home like some kind of stalker. O'Hara's grandson Connor Fitzsimmons, who discovered many of Ford's letters, told the Irish Times that Ford was certainly obsessed with his grandmother. But there's no evidence his affections were ever returned. He said it was an unspoken thing that only a few people like John Wayne knew about. Ford was in love with the look and the person he created. He gave her a look in her name, as she was born Maureen Fitzsimmons. O'Hara herself used to joke that Ford had a schoolboy crush on her. But she said that about many men. The truth was darker and more disturbing than a simple crush. This was obsession, harassment, and abuse. In her 2004 autobiography T.I.'s Herself, O'Hara wrote that for years she wondered why John Ford grew to hate her so much and couldn't understand what made him say and do so many terrible things to her. She eventually realized that he didn't hate her at all. He loved her very much and even thought he was in love with her. But his inability to deal with those feelings, combined with his Catholic guilt and the fact that she would never return his affections, turned that love into something toxic and abusive. This is the classic pattern of an abuser who can't handle rejection. O'Hara later reflected that it was her very fearlessness that drew John Ford's intense focus, making her both a target of his temper and, paradoxically, someone he respected, however reluctantly. But respect doesn't excuse abuse. Respect doesn't make it okay to punch someone in the face. Respect doesn't justify breaking into someone's home. What John Ford did to Maureen O'Hara was wrong, and she had every right to hate him for it. The flame-haired Irish actress was among the earliest female stars to openly challenge the dark, exploitative underbelly of the Hollywood studio system. At a time when actresses were expected to be obedient, accommodating, and silent, she boldly refused to tolerate the predatory behavior that had become disturbingly normalized within the industry. Throughout the 1940s and 1950 seconds, O'Hara quietly endured harassment and unethical conduct from influential executives and producers, choosing resistance over silence. In later interviews, she revealed that her career had suffered precisely because she refused to submit to what was then called the casting couch culture. In a strikingly direct 1957 statement, she recalled being insulted, humiliated, and effectively blacklisted for refusing to allow studio heads and producers to touch her. A shocking admission in an era when women who spoke out were swiftly discredited or silenced. O'Hara's decision to speak openly about Ford's abusive behavior at a time when Hollywood was ruled by powerful men stands as a powerful testament to her courage. Importantly, she never sought to erase Ford's legacy or deny his cinematic genius. Instead, she offered an honest portrayal of a man capable of breathtaking artistry and deep cruelty. Despite the threats and abuse, O'Hara remained steadfast, trusting in her talent and guided by an unshakable ethical compass. Raised in Ireland with strong Catholic values that placed personal dignity above all else, O'Hara carried those principles into the unforgiving world of show business and never abandoned them. Maureen O'Hara's courage came at a steep price. Her refusal to submit to the casting couch culture and her insistence on choosing roles based on her values rather than just money meant she turned down many lucrative opportunities. This integrity cost her financially. At the time of her death in 2015, Maureen O'Hara's net worth was estimated to be around $10 million. This might sound like a lot, but when you consider her status as one of Hollywood's biggest stars during the Golden Age, it's actually quite modest. Compare that to some of her contemporaries like John Wayne, who accumulated much larger fortunes. As she herself admitted in that 1957 statement, she was effectively blacklisted by some studio heads for refusing their advances. Being blacklisted meant fewer roles, lower pay, and less bargaining power. During Hollywood's Golden Age, actresses typically earned far less than their male co-stars, even when they were equally famous. O'Hara made good money during her peak years, with estimates suggesting she earned upwards of $500,000 per film at her peak, which was substantial for the time. But that money came in slowly over decades, and she had to support herself and her daughter after her divorces. O'Hara was smart with her money though. She invested in real estate, owning properties including an impressive Irish country home called Lugdine Park in Glengariff, County Cork, where she lived from 1968 until 2014. After marrying Blair in 1968, O'Hara retired from acting to help run his seaplane airline company, Antilles Airboats, in the US Virgin Islands. She even became president of the airline after Blair's death in 1978 and also edited a magazine called The Virgin Islander. These business ventures added to her wealth, but also required significant time and management. In 2004, O'Hara published her autobiography T.I.'s Herself, which became a New York Times bestseller. Book sales from the memoir added to her income during her final decade. Even after her death, her estate continues to earn money from royalties as her classic films like Miracle on 34th Street, The Quiet Man, and How Green Was My Valley continue to be shown on television and streamed on platforms. Her legacy endures not only in the films she graced, but in the principles with which she lived. She stood up to John Ford when nobody else would. She rejected the casting couch when it could have made her career easier and more profitable. She spoke the truth about Hollywood's abuses decades before it was safe to do so. She proved that you could maintain your dignity, your values, and your self-respect even in an industry designed to strip those things away. Maureen O'Hara truly hated John Ford more than anyone, and after learning what he did to her, punching her in the face, breaking into her home, sending obsessive letters, and abusing her on set, you can understand exactly why. But she also transcended that hatred to build a legacy that inspires us still today. Drop a comment below if you grew up watching Maureen O'Hara's films and let us know which role was your favorite.